Hello, I'm Sherry Sturman, Director of Crayola Education. We're excited that Harper Kids are collaborating with Crayola on the Read Along, Draw Along event. In honor of School Library Month in April and National School Librarian Day, which is being celebrated around the country, we would like to thank the amazing professionals who make sure children have access to great books. Whether you're new to the series or have been a regular watching, I'm excited that we're celebrating both written and visual literacy. The incredible combination of voices from authors and illustrators that bring great stories to life. So get cozy, grab some drawing materials, and get ready for an interactive story session. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, author Nikki Giovanni and illustrator Erin Robinson, who collaborated on the book, A Library. Nikki, you're one of the world's best known and most dearly loved poets, plus so much more. You're a civil rights activist, nonfiction writer, and commentator. You've won numerous awards, including the Langston Hughes Medal, Coretta Scott King Award, and the NAACP Image Award. You were nominated for a Grammy Award for your poetry album and were named one of Oprah Winfrey's 25 Living Legends. In addition to the achievements and the accolades, you're an educator who's taught at numerous colleges and universities. It is such an honor to talk with you today and have you inspire our viewers who are young readers and storytellers. Please tell us how you got started writing and share some of the most important life lessons that you've learned along the way.
My family is a family of storytellers, and particularly my grandfather lived with my grandparents, but mostly I followed what my grandmother did. But it was Grandpapa who told the stories. Most evenings before dinner, he would say, "Nikki, let's walk down to the train station and see the trains come in." We would walk down and he would talk about one thing or another. But what I finally understood is that Grandpapa was a Latin scholar. He graduated Fisk University. He had been translating the law for Thurgood Marshall. And he kept the in his pocket, and he kept an envelope, and he would pass it to the Pullman porters, and they would take it to Mr. Marshall. Now, we all know, as we do know, the law is written in Latin. Grandpapa quietly did his part in civil rights, watching how he told his story. And now I realize that that's one of the things that I want to do, is to tell the story of the men and women who quietly, we know the stories of the people who walked, and we know the stories of the people who crossed the bridge. And I was fortunate to graduate with Fisk University, also with John Lewis. But we forget about the quiet people who quietly went about telling stories about the law, telling stories about the possibilities, teaching us that we had rights and responsibilities, that we had a duty. And of course, as I say, Grandpapa was a great storyteller. When we go home, we would have dinner, and she would say, "John Brown, how did everything go today?" And I couldn't see that anything went anywhere. I was a girl. What finally dawned on me was that envelope I used to watch, that's how it went. I start my storytelling. I thought, well, somebody has to remember. I didn't know. I was too young to know that somebody has to remember, but I did remember. I just wanted to keep it. I thought, well, I'll remember that. And I'll remember that. And now, of course, I'm able to write about it. I'm able to share not just my story or my grandparents' story, but the story of our people out there. There are just many stories out there.
Erin, you're an Emmy-nominated illustrator whose work has been featured in the New York Times and the Washington Post. Your work ranges from news and documentary art to illustrating children's books with rich textures, engaging characters, and inviting settings. Please tell our viewers how you got started in this field and how your early passion for art led to your career as an illustrator.
I have to say arts and crafts and anything that has to do with, creating has been in my blood since I got here. I started off as a fashion designer and did that for many, many, many years. Worked in television, doing costume design, as well as worked for a whole bunch of different corporations doing children's clothes. And then it just got to the point of I had some friends and my dad, some of my family members were like, when are you going to share your artwork? Because I've always loved to draw and paint, since I was a kid. I always had all the tools. My dad's an architect, so I had everything. Venturing into the illustration art field from, my friends pushing me on. And so I've always loved to, paint, do mixed media, collage. Then one day my dad's like, how come you don't draw on your iPad? And I was like, oh. But anyway, it turned into a bit of a diary for me. And I started sharing that work, and I kind of wanted to develop a signature for myself. I still wanted things to feel rich and textured and look like you can almost touch them. So I started sharing that work, and it just evolved into the publishing world, and getting paired one day with Nikki Giovanni to bring her book, A Library, to life. So I always tell people it's never too late to reinvent yourself.
Nikki, you started writing children's books in the 1970s, shortly after your son Thomas was born. While you had already been a prolific author who was writing soul-stirring poems for adults, what inspired you to bring your voice to children's books, helping children around the world understand equity, diversity, and inclusion?
I think I'm just very lucky to have finally realized if you're going to build a house, you have to have a foundation. And in literature, the foundation has to be children's literature. And I was always fascinated by Little Red Riding Hood. And I know people laugh and they say, well, the wolf was after her. And I thought that's illogical. My mother would never send me into the forest where there would be wolves to attack me. It just wouldn't happen. But we have treated that as a children's story. And I thought it's not a children's story. It's a warning. It's how mothers during the age of not being able to read and write, they did not have paper at that point, that these folk tales are going to come up, that this is how they were teaching their sons and daughters how to navigate. And the one thing that we learned to navigate the world was you can count on your grandmother. Now, I obviously am a Black American, and we too could not read or write. We were denied that possibility the first couple of 100 years here in America, but we sang songs, and those songs were the folk tales. So we sang it, the Europeans spoke it, and somehow or another, we taught each other. And I thought, well, obviously, children's literature is more important than we have treated it as if, oh, isn't that cute? And you realize, no, it's not cute. It's a lesson that particularly mothers, and I'm not excluding fathers, but that mothers are teaching their daughters how to navigate in the world and to be safe and to be loving. And I started to go into that just to start to look at what are we learning from this, and who are we actually, as the old spiritual says, leaning on the everlasting arms. Who are we counting on? And we're counting on each other. And I thought, well, we need to know more about children's literature than we have obviously paid attention to.
Love your thought about children's literature being the foundation and offering us so many rich lessons that for everyone of every age. Thank you. Erin, please tell us about your illustration process. How do you do your visual research to make sure the settings and the characters that you draw look authentic, particularly when you're representing a different era, like in this story, A Library?
Well, for Nikki's book, definitely research involved. I knew what the error was. So it's always, Google searching, looking for images of like what libraries looked like back in that day, what the dresses looked like back in that time, cars, all sorts of different things. So what I would do is usually make a collection of things for inspiration pages and then do little grids so that I can pull them into. I work on a digital platform, Procreate. So, and then I'd pull them in so that I could start to sketch out rough draft ideas from Nikki's text. Besides all that, the other things, there's just so much that inspires me, textures and colors. Colors are really important to me. Travel. Right now I'm talking to you guys from Kenya. Such a beautiful place right now. And I'm listening to birds sing, and I've been obsessed with textures of feathers and the bark on trees. And the way the flowers grow, and I've been collecting flower petals and, pressing, doing dried flowers. Like, so all this little stuff, gets my mind going to, create a bigger picture.
Great tips for our young viewers to research and to really be very observant of what's around them. Thank you. Nikki, we're excited to hear this personal story that's based on precious memories from your childhood. Please read a library.
Erin did a wonderful job with illustrating the book. After breakfast on Monday, grandmother washes the sheets and pillowcases. I wash the dishes. I help her hang the sheets outside and watch the wind gently blow them. Grandmother takes her sit down and asks me, "Aren't you going to return those books?" I hurry up Mulvaney Street, all the way to Vine Avenue to the Carnegie Library. A library is a place to be free, to be in space, to be a cook, to be a crook, to be in love, to be unhappy, to be quick and smart, to be contained and cautious, to surf the rainbow, to sail the dreams, to be blue, to be jazz, to be wonderful, to be you. Yeah, a place to be. I go home and help fold the sheets and peel the carrots and potatoes and onions, and go sit on the back porch, covering my toes with a quilt, and read and read and read, which I used to do, to be another me. If I wanted some quiet, which I usually did because I had now gotten, I had checked out, we checked out books. I had checked out books that I wanted to read. So I would take a quilt. Grandmother made quilts and my great grandmother made quilts. And I still have my great grandmother's quilt, which sits on my couch. And if I'm ever cold or sad or just wanting a hug, I can go to that quilt and wrap myself and feel their love. And I love that. And it always reminds me, which is how I ended up writing about the library. That quilt reminded me so much of the warmth and the love that a library gives. And I love the book is just important. The book is my heart in many respects. It's my love song to my grandmother. I learned things from her, and not always because she taught me things, but because together we did things. And quilts, of course, I'm always involved in quilts. A lot of my work has to do with quilts, but I would remind all of us that America is a quilt because they're little pieces of all of the world that are sewn together to make this nation. And as we appreciate what a quilt is not rags that are thrown together. It is a piece of art that keeps us warm and takes us to the next step. And I would say to everybody, keep something, keep a piece of your grandfather's tie or your grandmother's dress, or, your mom's wedding dress, if you have that. And eventually, when you have your children, you'll want to put that in your quilt.
Nikki, this book is a beautiful tribute to libraries and librarians. I love the way the book unfolds, that deep connection that you still feel from your childhood with this library. And all these years later, your reflections on this dear Mrs. Long, your first librarian. Please tell us about the sections of the book that start with "a library is ... and how that continues through this series of beautiful images that Erin created and the words that radiate hope and opportunity.
Well, I think that what I was wanting everybody who would read this book, or anybody who would read this book, to understand that you are many things in a library. You're not just what somebody else has decided you should be. You go into a library and you can create yourself, is what I'm trying to say. I love libraries, and I always did, and I always will. I think they're the most important things. I think critics and libraries are probably two most important people in a writer's life, other than the writer herself.
Erin, what an opportunity you had to draw esteemed author Nikki as a child. And as with any children's book that deals with a serious subject like segregation and such a powerful story of hope and perseverance, you had the challenge of presenting a whole range of emotions in these illustrations. Please tell us how you bring young Nikki's courage and curiosity and strength and intelligence to life in your illustrations.
Whenever I read a story before I commit to illustrating it, I have to make sure that it sits with me, that it's in my heart and, my spirit, that it's going to ignite something in me. And that story did, because I know that it took place during a challenging time, but the words to me were magical and special and a little bit ethereal and dreamy, and that it was like to be in your own little world in the library. But I found it enjoyable and felt like I could do her story a visual justice.
You will be doing 2 art demonstrations, and our viewers will be drawing alongside you. We love how your imagination comes to life with just about every art medium and amazing fun art techniques, including collage. Please show us how to create a magnificent colored quilt like the one that Nikki wraps herself in and that she talked about as being so important, her tradition of her family and her grandmother making quilts.
So I was really excited when I got all these lovely fun products from Crayola. And one of the things they sent to me was called Bright Pot Cardstock. They have all these beautiful designs already made. So I thought what could be really cool was to sort of browse through the selection in here. And what I did was I started to take a variety of the colors in here, and like from a page, I would cut out probably like a third of the paper. So you kind of get, just a shape like this. And then what you do, here's some other ones, like really pretty little shapes in here. Like these feel really quilty to me. So, and you take the piece of paper and you can fold it into 4. So I folded it like this and then folded it in half again and folded it in half again. So basically it's almost like this little fan that you make right here. And then you can see you have like 4 little lines. And then what you can do, you can either take, your scissors and cut along the line here. Oops, something fell. So you can cut on the line here, or I just sometimes just tear the strips. So you get like all kinds of little strips like this in all kinds of different colors. Then you're going to take your pile of strips. I probably cut out about maybe 25 to 30 of these strips here. So like I said, like a little third of a square, put it into 4s, cut out your strips. And then what you can start is, let me see, which I started just to give you a good idea how you can create, is this right here. Put it on the white side here. So what you're going to do is, it's like a little weaving process, like putting all these little pretty little papers together. And so what I did is I take the strips and then you just sort of weave them in like so. Weave them in like so. And you start to get like a nice quilty woven funness here. So yeah, so you kind of go over, under with all your strips. One more. And then you'll get like a nice, can you guys see that? Like all the colors. So it reminds me a lot of like the quilt that I drew in a library book that Nikki used to wrap around her. Of course, they're bigger squares and have stitching and stuff on them, but I love, so I did a bunch of these. So we have one here, and then there's another one hiding somewhere. Oh, here it is. And then you just get all these really, really pretty squares and patterns. And if you want, you can paste them down in place. And then if you want, you can make it like a little loop so that you can hang it somewhere, or maybe paste more than one panel together. But that's kind of what I did with these, with the bright pop cardstock to create a quilt. If you don't have, you know, bright pop cardstock paper, you could use different color construction paper, or you can use your own creative minds and take white paper and draw designs and just tear them into strips and create like your own unique designs as well.
Now for the next art demo, we saw throughout the book how Nikki rated so much joy she was ready to go to the library. Please show us some tips for sketching a person and then using cutout paper to complete the art, so our viewers can draw either Nikki, as she was shown in the book, or they can draw themselves, radiating joy as they visit a library.
Got all these great products here from Crayola. So one of the things they sent was this premium white construction paper. So I first took, I took a sheet of the paper, and then I just looked through the, a library book to see what I wanted to recreate. We've got, oh my gosh, we have these great pencils here. Colors of the World pencils. So they have all kinds of different shades going on in here. I just took any color. I'm not sure. Let's see if we can see that. And what I did was just try to recreate one of the illustrations in the book of Nikki reading. I think she's got little bows in her hair and her eyes are closed, little nose, got a little smile on her face, little rosy cheeks. She's getting her read on here. So anyway, I started like that. This is like really sketchy. You guys can use like a darker pen if you like. Basically, something like that. That was her reading. And then what I did was I took this and I cut it out. So I got all, the shapes here. So I've got the shape of her head. I cut out the cheeks. I cut out the eyes. I cut out the mouth. I cut out the hair. And what I cut it out with, I was really excited. Also, Crayola sent Colors of the World. They've got all these beautiful shades of different colored paper in here, from beiges to light pinks to all the different browns going on in here. So what I did was I started to cut out the shape of this little story, the Nikki's face. These are some of the colors that I used. This really chocolatey color for her eyes and nose, and this color I used for her lip color. Then we've got some skin color. And then we have, can't see this so well, but this is a really nice light pink for some cheek color as well. So I took all these pieces here and started to cut out shapes. Here she goes. We started here. And then we get a little something like this. I think it might be easier. You guys, let's do it here. So I took the glue stick once again, and I started pasting down the shapes so you can start to see it's starting to take form. Let me see if I can get all the other little tiny little pieces together. So I think we've got a little smile here. I'm doing this upside down, so I'm not sure. Let's see, we got her lips right here. And then we've got little eyebrows here. Give her a little nose. And we have a little eye here. And there's one missing, so it's all good because you know what? I've got lots of paper here. So we can just cut out another little eye shape here. That works. Eyes, nose, mouth. And then she's going to be reading. So let's see. I know her book was a different color, but maybe we'll use some of that other paper. I already have designs and stuff on it. But, she can be reading whatever she wants. Nikki says she goes to the library and reads all sorts of stuff. She gets lost in her imagination. And then you can just paste all these pieces down. And you cannot forget with Nikki. Let's see if we can make this show up here. My favorite thing to do. Nikki has freckles. So let's draw a few little freckles on her. A few little freckles. Make her a little bit more Nikki-ish. And yeah, oh, you know what? We forgot. How could I forget? I forgot to put the ribbons in her hair. You can make them whatever color you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. Put it in there. But you should feel free to use whatever colors, whatever is in your imagination to create what your heart desires. Much fun cutting little shapes out. Let's give her another little ribbon here. Probably should have done that a contrast color, because in the book, I know the background has a lot of different gradients in it. Yeah, now she's got her little ribbon bows. Oops, she needs one more string. And kind of like bada boom. There you go. Little construction paper. Nikki reading her book. You know, you can create whatever, like I said, your heart desires using all these fun papers and doing cutout. And that's that. Bada boom.
I love the way the book pops up and that you showed so many techniques for using cut paper. Now that you've seen Erin create art, it's time for you to do it too. Grab some colored paper, markers, colored pencils, and think about if you'll create a colorful quilt that you can use to get cozy with books, or your version of going to the library by creating a face that radiates the joy of reading. After this session, you'll have plenty of time to finish your art and share it in the comment section of this video. Parents and teachers, when young artists finish their art, we recommend that you ask them what books they'd like to read and how visits to the library make them feel. Then post a photo of their art in the comment section. We can't wait to see what they create. While kids of all ages are busy finishing their drawings, I want to mention that parents and teachers can continue to receive creative self-expression ideas from Crayola Education. Just sign up for the free monthly e-newsletters. Be the first to know about the next Read Along, Draw Along program and other colorful learning events. The news will be delivered straight to your email box. Nikki, your childhood memories of reading and feeling special in the library have stayed with you for decades. This book is a testament to the long-lasting effect of early childhood experiences. What closing advice would you like to share to help children and adults savor these memorable moments of their youth and appreciate how personal interactions like yours with Mrs. Long can last a lifetime?
There is an expression, reading is fundamental. Reading is the most important thing that we do. And I actually feel on the days that I cannot, I read the comics. If I can't read anything else, every day, I want to read at least the comics and see what somebody else is thinking.
Love that. Great advice. And Erin, before we close the program, what additional advice would you like to share with our viewers that would encourage young artists to use their imaginations to take them to new cozy places and different spaces, traveling through books and their imagination?
It's our responsibility, you know, to guide them and to nurture them. And I'm hoping that the ones that are doing that are really letting them be authentic. And for me, I had parents that really let me explore my creative gifts to do what I really love. I want them to do what they love.
Great advice for them to follow their passion. We want to thank Nikki Giovanni and Erin K. Robinson for inspiring us today. We also want to thank Harper Kids for bringing this wonderful book to the Read Along, Draw Along program. And in celebration of School Library Month and National School Librarian Day, let's all thank the American Association of School Librarians for the incredible work that they do every day of the year. And we extend a special thanks to all of you, the viewers who've joined us. Remember that libraries open windows that help us see who we are inside and doors that help us discover the world around us.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.